Hi guys, today we're going to be looking at Kohlberg 1968, the Child as a Moral Philosopher, and this is for the OCR A2 Psychology spec. Background. Kohlberg puts forward his theory of moral development and explores the cognitive background of this area of development. He uses the research he has carried out to explain and support his stage theory, with examples showing how moral thinking changes as a child gets older. He looks at data from cross-cultural research, which suggests a universality in moral development across cultures. Kohlberg was inspired by Piaget's pioneering effort to apply a structural approach to moral development rather than linking it with personality traits. He expanded on these notions of moral development and saw moral development as a more gradual process than Piaget. Aims. Kohlberg's aim is to show how his research supports his stage theory of moral development. Kohlberg writes about his theory in relation to Piaget's theory, as well as behaviorism and Freudian psychology, which supports the idea of morality being linked to the development of the superego. Research method. This was a longitudinal study, and Kohlberg followed the development of the same group of boys for 12 years by presenting them with hypothetical moral dilemmas, all deliberately philosophical. Their aim was to show how, as young adolescents develop into young manhood, they move through the distinct levels and stages of moral development, proposed by Kohlberg in his theory of moral development. Kohlberg also studied moral development in other cultures using hypothetical moral dilemmas. This study therefore has a cross-cultural element. Sample. The sample consisted of 75 American boys who were aged 10 to 16 at the start of the study. They were followed at 3-year intervals through to the ages of 22 to 28. Moral development was also studied in boys of other cultures including Great Britain, Canada, Taiwan, Mexico and Turkey. Procedure. Using 75 American boys, the participants were presented with hypothetical moral dilemmas in the form of short stories to solve. The stories were to determine each participant's stage of moral reasoning for each of 25 moral concepts/aspects. The aspects assessed included motive given for rule obedience or moral action, the value of human life, tested by asking the participant, age 10, is it better to save the life of one important person or a lot of unimportant people? Aged 13, 16, 20, and 24, should the doctor mercy kill a fatally ill woman requesting death because of her pain? Using different cultures. Taiwanese boys aged 10 to 13 were asked about a story involving theft of food. A man's wife is starving to death, but the store owner won't give the man any food unless he can pay, which he can't. Should he break in and steal some food? Why? Young boys in Great Britain, Canada, Mexico and Turkey were tested in a similar way. Procedure continued. Using different cultures, Taiwanese boys aged 10 to 13 were asked about a short story involving the theft of food. I think we just looked at that, so I don't know why I've just repeated this, sorry. Key findings. In relation to motive given for rule obedience or moral action, each of Kohlberg's 6 stages was shown as follows. Obey 1. Obey rules to avoid punishment. 2. Conform to obtain rewards, have favours returned, etc. 3. Conform to avoid disapproval, dislike by others. 4. Conform to avoid censure by legitimate authorities and resultant guilt. 5. Conform to maintain the respect of the impartial spectator judge in terms of community welfare. 6. Conform to avoid self-condemnation. In relation to the value of human life, the 6 stages were as follows. The value of human life is confused with the value of physical objects and is based on the social status or physical attributes of its possessor. 2. The value of human life is seen as instrumental to the satisfaction of the needs of its possessor or of other people. 3. The value of human life is based on the empathy and affection of family members and others towards its possessor. 4. Life is conceived as sacred in terms of its place in a categorical, moral, or religious order of rights and duties. 5. Life is valued both in terms of its relation to community welfare and in terms of life being a universal human right. 6. Belief in the sacredness of human life as representing a universal human value of respect for the individual. In his study, Kohlberg gives examples of how boys in his research demonstrated each stage of moral reasoning and how values changed as individuals progressed through the stages. Results show that about 50% of each of the 6 stages a participant's thinking was at a single stage, regardless of the moral dilemma involved, and participants showed progress through these stages with increased age. Not all participants over the period of the study progressed through all the stages and reached stage 6. Participants progressed through the stages one at a time and always in the same order. Once a participant had reached a particular stage, they either stopped or continued to move upward. No adults in stage 4 had been through stage 6, but all stage 6 adults had gone through at least stage 4. A child at an earlier stage of development tends to move forward when confronted with the views of a child one stage further along, and they seem to prefer this next stage. Cross-cultural findings. Taiwanese boys aged 10 to 13 tended to give classic stage 2 responses. Middle-class urban boys aged 10 in the US, Taiwan and Mexico showed the order of use of each stage to be the same as the order of its difficulty or maturity. In the US, by age 16, stage 6 was rarely used. At age 13, the good boy, middle stage, stage 3, was not used. Mexico and Taiwan showed the same results except that development was a little slower. At the age of 16, stage 5 thinking was much more salient in the US than either Mexico or Taiwan. Results for the 2 isolated villages, one in Yucatan, one in Turkey, also showed that moral thought increased steadily from ages of 10 to 16, though it had not achieved a clear ascendancy over pre-conventional thoughts. Trends for lower-class urban groups were intermediate in the rate of development between those for middle class and for village boys. In these 3 divergent cultures, therefore, middle-class children were found to be more advanced in moral judgment than matched lower-class children. No important differences were found in the development of moral thinking among Catholics, Protestants, Jews, Buddhists, Muslims, or atheists. Conclusions. There is an invariant developmental sequence in an individual's moral development. Each stage of moral development comes one at a time and always in the same order. An individual may stop at any given stage and at any stage. Moral development fits with Kohlberg's stage pattern theory. There is a cross-cultural universality of sequence of stages. Middle-class and working-class children move through the same sequence, but middle-class children move faster and further. This 6-stage theory of moral development is not significantly affected by widely ranging social, cultural, or religious conditions. The only thing that is affected is the rate at which individuals progress through the sequence. Thank you for watching that short presentation on Kohlberg. I hope you made some notes and paused the video as I went through. But thank you for watching, and I should be making some more videos, so please check those out. Thank you.